When it comes to Joe's Drive-In, I always find it difficult to decide what movie to talk about next. Do I pick something well-known or relevant, or maybe something more obscure? The options are truly limitless. I know, I think I'll just take a random one off the shelf this time. How about this one? Today we're going to take a look at Little Abner. Wait, who the fuck is Little Abner?
Excellent! Say what again?
Little Abner is an American newspaper comic strip created by Al Capp in 1934. The strip follows the various mountain folk citizens of Dogpatch, USA, a hillbilly village in the Kentucky mountains, with the main character being the titular Abner Yoakum. Abner is far from little, standing 6 foot 3 inches tall at 19. He seems like a big brute, but actually has a heart of gold. Little Abner also has a massive cast of other characters, including, but not limited to, Abner's love interest, Daisy Mae, his parents, Mammy and Pappy, as well as Mary and Sam, Lonesome Polecat, Hairless Joe, Moonbeam McSwine, Moonshine McSwine, Joe Biscuit,
Hingle McCringleberry,
Earthquake Magoon, The Schmooze, can't forget the Schmooze, Available Jones, Stupefying Jones, and Wolfgal. The strip was incredibly popular, earning itself a film adaptation in 1940, which we're going to be looking at today, so let's jump right in.
Little Abner, woo-hoo, Little Abner, woo-hoo. Every gal in town is after Little Abner, poor Abner.
Much like the strip, the main story centers around the citizens of Dogpatch as they live out their daily lives. They're simple folk, with many of them not even able to read, but what they lack in education they make up for with friendliness and seem pretty wholesome.
Celebrated. Printing's all mixed up, y'all. I reckon I'll better study it out.
Dogpatch is a town of bachelors. The men here are all lazy while the women do all the work. The men don't typically chase after the women at all, but the women are desperate enough to pursue the lethargic males. I can only assume this was a clever subversion of 1930s sensibilities back then. It all comes together on the day of Dogpatch's famous Sadie Hawkins Day race, the one day a year where the women claim a man for their own, whether the men want to or not. Abner himself seems to be quite the eligible bachelor, attracting the attention of not one, not two, but 3 separate women. He doesn't seem to like them back though, or perhaps he's just oblivious.
Guess I can't walk unless I have someone strong to hold on to.
Wait here, I'll see if there's someone strong around.
But doesn't wish to marry any of them.
Marry up with you?
That's exactly what I mean.
Oh, no, man. I just couldn't.
The film follows Abner as he attempts to stay single, but ends up getting drafted in the race where his bride will be decided for him.
Oh, shit.
Little Abner is a very low-key and laid-back film. The story itself is very light, much like a comic strip. Even when a villain character, Earthquake Magoon, is introduced, the encounter is very relaxed.
Earthquake Magoon, I presume. The same? I was here to take you to the sheriff, where I aims to collect a $25 reward. That's most interesting.
You'd expect the movie to end with some sort of Popeye-esque final confrontation with Magoon, but the plot point doesn't really go anywhere. The film ends with the Sadie Hawkins Day race instead, which is a much lighter note to end on. It's interesting watching a movie ending with such low stakes, and it's not climactic at all. When it comes to the cast of characters, a lot of the ones from the comics make an appearance. It seems like there was a lot of fan service here, with some art from the comics even appearing as well. I can imagine it was very exciting for fans to see all their favorites on screen when this came out. Abner himself is huge, just look at him. He's pretty strong too. He's a simple man and easily fooled, but seems to have some pretty decent morals and sticks to his convictions. Also, he makes one killer sandwich.
What you fixin', little Abner? Yoakum starvation preventer. Smells like you got sweet patootie in it. Not only sweet patootie, but I asked also sour pickles. Ham and cheese with catsup, pineapple, sardines off the can, of course. 2 fried eggs left from breakfast, a rash of roast pork, lots of catsup. So looks powerful good. Something missing. Maybe it's mustard. Maybe it was right.
I personally found myself really liking Hairless Joe. Out of everyone here, he looks the most like he came straight out of the comics, and he gets some pretty good lines too.
And you would really say $25 cash money?
That's what it say.
Oh, that sheriff must think we all idiots. There ain't that much money in the whole of tarnation.
Hairless Joe is often paired up with Lonesome Polecat, a Native American character that I can only assume is offensive. I say assume because for the life of me I can't find any of his comic strips online to read, but if his on-screen portrayal is anything to go off of, then it's a pretty safe bet.
We call Great Spirit. Make 'em fire, like Ancestor.
Lonesome Polecat is played by silent film legend Buster Keaton, who unfortunately does redface. While I very much enjoyed the friendship between Joe and Polecat, as it made the character more endearing than just a stereotype, I can best describe this later role from Keaton as embarrassing.
Yo-wee!
The art direction seems pretty accurate to the comic's style. It uses makeup and prosthetics to make some characters look more accurate, which can look a little weird, but I have to give them points for trying. The sets aren't grand, but fit the scale of the movie. Some of the visual gags are enjoyable, like this ridiculous-looking uppercut Abner deals to this one guy. There's also an amusing moment where all the Sadie Hawkins bachelors are trying to balance on this narrow beam here. It's lovably silly and captures that comic strip feel. There isn't much to talk about in terms of music, but there is a fun original song for the movie's theme that's catchy and fits in well.
But when it comes to kissing pretty women, little Abner goes, go, go. Daisy May pursues him, he always runs away.
Time has not been kind to this movie. It was panned upon release, and even today still sits at very low ratings. Although, to be fair, I don't think anybody's exactly rushing to see Little Abner. You won't be finding a 4K steelbook at your local Best Buy anytime soon.
Oh, shit.
Much like probably anybody watching this video, I had absolutely no clue who Little Abner was. I found this movie at a thrift store and took a chance. That being said, I ended up diving down the Little Abner rabbit hole for this video, and surprisingly found quite the legacy left behind by this movie and the comic it's based on. The movie is interesting as it's one of the earlier films to adapt a cartoon to live action. It seems like we get at least one of those movies every year now, and while Little Abner isn't the first to do it, it wasn't all that common back then. Although, it's worth mentioning that the film isn't entirely accurate. The comic was apparently known for its political satire, which is not present in the movie at all, instead leaning more toward the comedy aspect. An allegedly more accurate adaptation of the comic came in the form of a successful stage play in 1956, which in turn became a film in 1959, also called Little Abner. The comic itself had an impressively long run as well. It debuted in 1934 and concluded in 1977 after 43 years. That's so long that even Al Cap himself admitted that it should have ended much earlier. I mentioned how the 1940 film revolves around Sadie Hawkins Day. Now, I had already been familiar with Sadie Hawkins Day before. It's usually used as a theme for school dances or other social events where the women ask the men to be their date. What I didn't know was that the whole idea actually originated from the Little Abner comic strip. I think it's really interesting that this well-known concept actually came from an old newspaper comic this whole time. Something else I was surprised to learn was that in the comics, Hairless Joe and Lonesome Polecat create their own moonshine called Kickapoo Joy Juice.
It's sure pretty.
This was actually turned into a real-life soft drink. More surprisingly, it's actually still in production to this day, sold pretty much anywhere with novelty sodas. And oh yes, remember the schmooze? You can't forget the schmooze. I don't know what the hell a schmoo is, and I don't want to, but apparently these little bastards got everywhere. Schmoos got their own comics, there are schmoo toys, schmoo music, there are even scientific biology terms named after schmoos. The schmoos got an animated show by Hanna-Barbera and met the Flintstones for some reason. They even got a second Hanna-Barbera show called The New Schmoo. Now what's the New Schmoo, you ask? Well, the New Schmoos where a new schmoo gets a new crew where they sleuth clues like Scooby-Doo. Obviously. What the fuck am I looking at? Anyway, 1940's Little Abner adaptation is a fine movie. I can't say it's exciting, and it's fairly unremarkable. The film's a little rough around the edges too, with some awkward cuts, but that could just be the copy I have. Otherwise, it's generally harmless and an easy watch, with the only real issue being the insensitive depiction of Lonesome Polecat.
We make 'em fire. Ancestors, very clever people.
It seems we owe a lot to the comic's legacy, and the movie is an interesting piece of history. Little Abner is currently available to stream on multiple services like Amazon Prime, Tubi, and Pluto, among others, or you could just find the whole movie on YouTube. If this is the type of thing you're interested in, check it out. You may not like it, or like me, you could be pleasantly surprised. But one thing's for sure, you've certainly never heard of it.
Pa's here, little Abner, and yours mine. Pa's here, and yours mine.
I can't do it. I ain't a-gonna. I was supposed to be dead.
Little Abner, woo-hoo, little Abner, woo-hoo. Every gal in town is after little Abner, poor Abner. He's a Superman that's women, he'll give any man a trimming. But when it comes to kissing pretty women, little Abner goes,
Will I die? You're dead now.